As I started the videos today, I talked about having this sideways orientation. So I'm not facing the net while I'm drilling these lobs. I'm sideways, so my feet and my hips and my shoulders are all pointed in the direction I want this ball to go. And so here's, and I mentioned there were a couple of times in the game where you have to do that. Here's the first one of those. So I'm up on the kitchen line, my partner's here, and the lob goes over my partner's head. It's my job to run that lob down. So what I will do is I will say mine, and I will turn and start running, never taking my eye off this ball. Ideally, my partner yells switch, and they move over and cover the side of the court that I just vacated. I don't have to tell them to switch. They do that, and I can hear that they did. I can just concentrate on this ball. So by the time I get back here now, you can see I'm oriented not toward the net, but I'm oriented sideways to the net. And so that's in a game how I'm going to have to hit this ball. Same thing happens on the other side. My partner's here, I'm standing here, the lob goes over my partner's head. I yell, I've got it. I turn and I start running. I never take my eyes off that ball. I know where the court is. I hear my partner yell switch. I just focus on this ball, get down here and hit this lob back. So I want to lob this ball back, but you can tell my orientation on my body is not facing this net. So if in a game I'm practicing or I'm drilling facing the net, that's not a real world situation for when you get in the game about how you're going to have to hit those two balls. Now as this starts, lob goes over my partner's head. They may think they can get it, and some of those they can, so they may start backpedaling. I still have to be committed to help them and yell. If I see them start to back up, I will generally say, I'm here, meaning that if you figure out you can't reach that ball, just switch and I'll get it. Or if you want to take it, go ahead and take it. But I will start running back here and go, I'm here, to let them know audibly that I can cover that ball if they can't get to it. Same thing on the other side. Ball goes up high over my partner's head. Sometimes they think they can get it. They start backpedaling. I go back to cover them just as a safety net. If they swing and they still don't get it, I'm still on my way here. I can still hit this ball. Now we've vacated one half of the court, but that's just what it is. If it turns out I'm running back here and they do get it, I'm watching their paddle in the ball. If I see that contact, I'm stopping as quickly as I can and coming straight over. I'm not trying to get back up the kitchen line. I'm just trying to get back over and cover the side of the court. So that's the first condition in the game where you're kind of forced to go hit that lob with this orientation being sideways to the net. Here's the second situation where you have to be sideways to that ball. And this happens sometimes. So we've served the ball, our opponents have hit, the return serve is coming back over. I'm thinking my partner's gonna go get that third shot, and what I hear is them yell yours and take off for the kitchen line. What I have to do then, I'm in a little bit of trouble, I'm in a rush to get to that ball. I just slide over and try and lob this ball up high and deep to give me time to get up to the kitchen line and give us time to recover. So I don't have a lot of time, and you can tell my body orientation is now away from the net. I'm not squared up to the net, I'm facing away. Same thing happens on the other side. So as we serve, that return serve comes over, my partner yells yours and takes off because they think I have a good backhand and they're just going to give me a bunch of these balls. I'm expecting them to give that ball, but they're already gone up to the net. I've got to run over. Again, I'm facing this way. I'm not oriented toward the net anymore. I'm sideways to the net, and I'm going to lob this ball up high and deep to give us time to recover. So that's the second situation where real world in a game situation, I've got to be oriented this way to hit those lobs either on the forehand or the backhand side. And that's why I recommend that you drill those so that you're comfortable and you're proficient and your consistency is there to hit those lobs oriented sideways to the net instead of facing the net. So third situation where you want to have this sideways orientation when you lob is you're in a dink battle and you want to lob off that dink and catch your opponents off guard. What happens is, say I'm on this backhand dink battle, same thing happens on the forehand side. I'll show you on the backhand side. So as this ball comes over, I want it to look like I'm going to go back across court with this dink, but instead what I want to do is take this ball and lob it, lift it, and get it into that back corner back there. If they don't see that coming, then I have a bigger chance for success. Now, if I were to take this and like try and run around here and lift this ball up, they would see that coming. That would be silly. So if I've always practiced my lobs with this sideways orientation to the net, then if I want to do this in a dink battle, it starts to feel kind of familiar. I've done this before because I've done it back there. right, so I'm down here and I just have a shorter, slower swing, let the paddle ball come off the paddle more, lift this ball up to the back corner. So that's the third situation where when you're dinking in a game, if I really have to be, or I want to be sideways to this net to lift that ball up and get it deep on my opponent's court. So we talked about 3 different ways where we want to be sideways when we lob. 2 of those were mandatory. That's the only thing we can do is get back there and hit that ball. The third one was off that dink, and so that's optional, but probably preferred. We want to keep that same sideways motion and try and disguise what we're about to do. Let's talk about times we would optionally lob during the game, and there are balls that do not lend themselves well to being lobbed. If those balls are fast and low, we don't want to try and lob that ball. That's just going to be too difficult to do. Now, if we get a slow moving, high bouncing ball, a better candidate to be lobbed if we want to lob those, go ahead, as long as we practiced. Now I have the choice about what body orientation do I want to have when I do those lobs. Do I want to be facing the net and do this, or do I want to be sideways? My suggestion is you do what you've practiced, and we've been practicing these because we have to have that body orientation in the game, so we should be putting in time getting good at that. So if I have time, this ball's coming slow and it's going to bounce high, I simply get sideways, so I can either step forward and get sideways, or I can drop back and get sideways. But in the end, now this is the familiar shot, the familiar form mechanics that I've used to practice and drill my lobs. I have a much better chance of that lob going well than if I do this. Now, if you want to do this, you can, but you need to practice still. And so if you're going to practice this and this, now we've watered down our practice time. Not really ideal. The other bad thing is this is just going to be hard to control. I talked about being low when I'm sideways. To get low and under this ball, a little bit more difficult to do. And so I highly recommend that you don't do that. But if you want to lob and this ball's coming slower and both of your opponents are up on the line, you want to lob it over their head, go ahead and do that. Just try and get sideways and use that same form that we've practiced for those other 3 situations that I talked about earlier.